It's time to talk hockey with the Utah Mammoth and NHL Insider on KSLSports.com. Cole Bagley on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to talk a little Mammoth hockey. Our next guest's appearance is brought to you by our friends at Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. He covers the Mammoth for KSLSports.com. He is Cole Bagley with us here on Jake and Ben. How are you, Cole?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Cole, 2-0 loss last night. I didn't think the Mammoth played poorly, though. I thought if you're going to lose a game, that's not the worst way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other hottest team in the National Hockey League that had the exact same record through January that they did. And, they went toe-to-toe to them with, through the majority of that game for about 52 minutes. But the issue they ran into was, taking too many penalties, They gave the Lightning 4 power plays, and in this calendar year, the Lightning are hitting on about 35% of their power play opportunities, and both goals came off the power play for Tampa Bay, and that was the difference in the game. So, yeah, they played well for the majority of it. They went, head-to-head with not only the other hottest team in the NHL, but the best team in the Eastern Conference this season, and, you really can't be too upset about that.
What has been the difference for the Mammoth? You mentioned being one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the NHL. What, if you had to pick one reason, why would that be?
I'd say probably just maturity, to be honest. They've played a lot of really good hockey lately, but I think the difference in this stretch and even this year compared to last is, when they've given up a goal early, which they had done in the previous 3 games, they'd given up 4 or 5 goals in the first 5 minutes through the previous 3. They made adjustments. They reacted appropriately. If they came out flat, they responded in the second and third periods with a surge of energy, with confidence, and with a desire to fight. Right? I mean, if you think back to last year, the inaugural season, there were so many games where, they just were not able to put it together for a full 60 minutes. And you're not going to play any game very often for a complete 60 minutes. But if you can have a consistent effort and energy and play with maturity, you're going to put yourself in a spot to win hockey games. And that's what the Mammoth are doing really well right now.
Looking at this trip, you're in Florida, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Florida's become a really nice hockey town. Like, they've got really good teams, and it seems like they've embraced it, though Florida's a much different state than Utah. It's really disjointed. Is it just winning? Do you think that has been a big part of these teams being embraced, or what is it, and maybe something Utah can mimic? Yeah,
I mean, everybody loves a winner, right? The Florida Panthers were kind of the joke of the NHL for most of their existence until they started winning. Obviously, everybody loves to support a championship team, and they made some really good moves. They drafted a couple of really good players, and then once they acquired Matthew Tkachuk from the Calgary Flames a couple of years ago, and Sam Bennett for that matter, kind of put them over the top, and they started competing. They shocked a couple of really good teams in the playoffs, and then eventually made their way to the Stanley Cup final and have won the last 2 in a row. So I think winning has definitely done that for the Panthers, but for Tampa Bay, and I think Utah could learn from this, is they have immersed themselves in that community. There is a lot of really good junior hockey being played in the Tampa area, a lot of that having to do with the junior Lightning programs. And then, obviously, I think winning goes into that as well. I mean, for the last 20 years, Tampa Bay has been, a team that has competed for Stanley Cups. They've won 3. They won back-to-back a couple of years ago. They won a cup in the early 2000s, and they've always just been right there. They've done really well in terms of managing their roster, in terms of moving on from guys when they needed to move on from them. I mean, they did that with Steven Stamkos a couple of years ago, and but they've reloaded. They've found really good talent. They've drafted really well, and they've made some good trades and acquisitions. And I think that the Lightning could be not even just a dark horse team for the Cup this year, but I think they could be a strong competitor coming out of the East.
I know this stretch is pretty brutal, obviously, with the 2 Florida teams and with Carolina. But overall, how hard is the schedule to finish things out for the Mammoth?
I mean, it's definitely favors. It continues to favor them. It's a lot nicer to finish out the year than it was to start. They kind of loaded the front half of their schedule. They were on the road more than any other team in the NHL. And I believe through the next, I think there's 30 games left. I think 17 of those are going to be at home with the remaining 13 on the road. So an opportunity to make the playoffs. And I think I was checking, playoff percentage chances the other day, and Utah was up at about 80%. And so, if through these next 30 games, if they can win, 17 or 18 of those, so if you can win 9 or 10 at home and then pick up 6 or 7 on the road, they're going to put themselves at about 94 points, which is generally the benchmark to get into the playoffs.
Sounds like there's some good news on the Logan Cooley front.
Yeah, we still don't have like an established timeline on when he could be back, but generally when a player, hits the ice, whether it's in a non-contact or a regular jersey, obviously Cooley was in a blue non-contact sweater. That's generally the first significant step towards a return, and the fact that he's traveling with the team is a good sign. I don't anticipate that we'll necessarily see him play through these next couple of games here on the road, but it kind of signals, hey, he's getting close. We want to get him back into the swing of things. We want him to return to the schedule. Positive news. As Bill Armstrong explained it to me a couple of weeks ago, he could come back before or after the Olympics. I think it'll just kind of depend on how quickly he progresses here over the next couple of days, maybe into the next week, because there's only about 5 games left before before the NHL takes their break for the Olympics.
Cole, we appreciate you and your willingness to jump on the show. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Cole.
Hey, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.